Okay, I see that almost everybody has logged in, so we can start with the webinar. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. During this webinar, we share our experience with SAP EWM. My name is Eli de Cat. I'm a sales manager for Ctac Belgium. And next to me is Bas Willems, solution architect, logistics, also of Ctac Belgium, Ctac, of course.
Good morning.
Before we start, some practical information about GoToWebinar, the tool we use for this webinar. On your screen, you will find your user panel. We have closed all audio for you, but will feel free to ask questions through the question box below. And afterwards, we will answer all your questions in this webinar. I would like to give the floor to Bas and start right away with the webinar.
Yes, thank you, Eli. Okay, so here are names and pictures. Okay, in this webinar, we would like to introduce EWM to you. Of course, this is not the introduction of the product EWM, because EWM was released in the year 2005. So it's 13 years old. And as you can see in this overview slide, the system is there for 13 years now. But the adoption went a little slow, mainly, of course, due to the economical crisis. But we see that in the year 2013, at the end of the economical crisis, EWM took a giant leap. And in the meantime, it's one of the leading warehouse management systems in the world. And as you can see, it's implemented all over the world in 24 different industries and in more than 3,000 warehouses. And that's the score of December 2015. So it's even more today. So it's for sure, it's not a new product. And when you're thinking about an EWM project, for sure, you're not a guinea pig. And you're working with a very mature warehouse management system. Okay, we want to show you the added value of EWM today. And the core functionality of a warehouse management system is what you see here in front of you. So we have the 4 outer walls of the warehouse, and a warehouse management system tries to manage everything that's inside these 4 walls. What you do first is that you manage your warehouse layout and you bring this into your warehouse management system. So you build your warehouse layout in your system. And then obviously you have inbound processes, internal processes like cycle counting and replenishment, and outbound processes like order picking. In the warehouse we find material handling equipment like reach trucks or forklifts, and we find pallets and other packaging materials. This is the core of a warehouse management system. And of course, EWM has very rich functionality inside of this core. But we want to show you today the added value of EWM. So it's not just about the core today, but we have a process, a supply chain process, with incoming goods and outgoing goods into the warehouse. So we have additional modules in EWM called shipping and receiving. And with shipping and receiving, it's very easy to interface, for instance, with transportation management systems, and to make use of trucks or barges or trains or something like that. And you can use them to dock them onto your warehouse. So you make use of a warehouse dock. And you can manage the loading and unloading processes in and out of the warehouse. Next to that, we go even further. When you make use of warehouse docks, and often this is capacity that is not available as much as you need it during the day. So you would like to have an efficient dock appointment scheduling tool, so you can provide slots, which dock time you can use, and you can provide these slots even to your carriers, and they can book slots, so you can have a very efficient onboarding and docking and unloading and loading process. And it goes even further than that, because on the outside of the warehouse premises, you often have a barrier or a check-in point and a check-out point. And and you can start the warehouse process even from there. So at the first moment of check-in of a vehicle on your yard or on your warehouse premises, you can manage everything that's going on in and around the warehouse. The module that does that is called yard management. So you see we have an end-to-end process for incoming goods, warehousing the goods, and outgoing goods. And this is the solution that can offer EWM. But still, this is only the core functionality of the system. There is far more than that. I want to give you a few examples. We have optimizers and algorithms inside of EWM. And one of the most important ones is the warehouse order creation rule. This is an algorithm that builds work packages for our order pickers, and it's a very intelligent algorithm. So it can build optimal work packages. It can sort the work packages so the order picking will be in an efficient sort sequence. And it can even consolidate multiple orders into one warehouse order. The next example is slotting and rearrangement. With slotting, you can adjust the master data of your warehouse products depending on, for instance, seasonal influences. If the season changes, some A articles will become C articles, and they will have to be moved in the warehouse from an A location to a C location. The slotting run will automatically adjust the warehouse master and create rearrangement proposals. The automatic wave creation does a fully automated work prep for your warehouse. So the work will be prepared and you can release it automatically. We have an exception handling framework. So each warehouse worker that will face a difficulty can choose an exception code and solve his problem so he can work efficiently later on. And another algorithm is the PEC spec determination. This is mainly used also for VAS, so value added services, and also for the proposal of packagings that the picker should use to perform his warehouse tasks. Next to that, we have frameworks. For instance, the warehouse monitor framework. This framework gives an overview of all the processes in your warehouse. And the warehouse workers work from only one screen only, the warehouse monitor. And this monitor, because it's a framework, can also be easily adapted, and additional fields can be brought into the monitor, so your warehouse workers see the information that they need to execute and monitor all the processes in the warehouse. The next framework is the RF framework. Because everything we do in a warehouse will be done on an RF scanner, we have functionalities all over the warehouse process that are supported in RF. So the loading, unloading, packing, repacking, deconsolidation, everything like that is supported on an RF scanner. And this is really new because in the previous SAP systems, only movements and cycle counting were supported in RF. And this framework is also easy to adjust. So if you need an RF transaction, a scanning transaction that suits your needs, it's very easy to bring this into the standard framework without having to build custom functionality. The next framework is the post-processing framework. This is a kind of an event system. So each event that occurs into your system, like finishing loading or finishing picking, can trigger output like printing or interfaces or triggering programs that do follow-up actions in the system. And this is also a framework that's overarching across all the objects in the warehouse management system, like transportation units, deliveries, everything like that. So in the post-processing framework, it's possible to trigger everything you need as a follow-up action based on events in your warehouse. The next framework I want to discuss is the Easy Graphics framework. This is the internal KPI builder of EWM. So all the events that occur in EWM are monitored, and they can be presented as KPIs. So the most important KPIs, you can very easily bring them into a graph or a speedometer or something like that, and show them onto the warehouse cockpit. So you have a very fast and real-time overview of all the KPIs in your warehouse. And the last framework that's available in EWM is the Easy Enhancement Workbench. And this is a workbench that allows you to adjust the main objects in EWM, like deliveries or transportation units or something like that, that you want to show on your screen. And it's very easy to enhance these objects, so you can model them to your own needs without having to adjust the standard system. So when we look at the EWM solution now, we see that the core warehouse management functionality is just a tiny part of the whole warehouse management offering that EWM offers. And you see that there's a lot of added value because it's a real supply chain system, and it has all kinds of optimizers, algorithms, and frameworks that are additional to the core functionality. But there's more than that. EWM is a supply chain system, so it should be able to communicate with the outside world. And as you can see in this slide, EWM is built so it can communicate with all kinds of modules in surrounding systems. Obviously, in a supply chain network, you should be able to communicate, for instance, with customs management systems. And when you have a warehouse in a manufacturing environment, you should be able to communicate with the manufacturing execution system, so you can receive goods from the manufacturing floor and also provide goods to the manufacturing shop floor. Obviously, you also need, as I mentioned before, connections to transportation management systems, so you can plan the arrival of trucks and also know which deliveries you should load into them. And also, to be compliant in a warehouse, EWM supports the EH&S module, so Environment, Health and Safety. So it's very easy to be compliant regarding dangerous goods and hazardous goods requirements. And last but not least, EWM also has built-in quality management connections, so your quality department can decide upon goods that are in your warehouse. But still, there's more than that, because these are functional modules that surround EWM, but we also have the technical possibilities. EWM is able to work with RF scanning, obviously, but it also has built-in native voice picking. There is a standard RFID support, and EWM is able to communicate directly with PLCs. So EWM can manage mini loads, conveyor belts, and everything that can be technically possible in a warehouse. So here we have the complete view of the EWM solution, or not even complete, there's more than that, but these are the highlights. And you see that the core warehouse management, where we started this webinar, is still only a very small part of the total offering. But still, there's more than that. When we bring the total solution into our toolkit, we want to implement EWM. And let's see what's in our toolkit then. So here we see that SAP offers for EWM a lot of support, so we can have successful implementation projects. The documentation of EWM is very, very good, and there are a lot of how-to guides. So if you want to make use of new functionality, there are how-to guides that provide you how to set up some functionalities. EWM also comes with migration tools. So the main objects you need when you do a warehouse management project, like a stock conversion, or upload your bins, or sort your bins in an optimal sequence, this is all possible from Excel templates, and it's all possible to upload them into EWM with migration tools that really help you to do a successful conversion. And we've seen in practice that, for instance, a stock conversion can be done by a junior consultant because the tool really helps him to upload his Excel stock, and it's not a hard thing to do anymore. Besides that, there are many books written about EWM, and not only for functional consultants, but also even for programmers. Even sample code can be provided in books, so it's also easy to work very nicely when you need to adjust the system a little bit to do this in a way that is meant so that you make use of the facilities that are there, like bodies. But maybe the most important thing that helps you successfully implement EWM is the pre-configured warehouse or the available templates. EWM comes with a pre-configured warehouse template, so you will start your EWM project with a running system. When the EWM system is is finished, we set the pre-configured warehouse into the system, and we have running scenarios. So we have outbound scenarios, inbound scenarios, internal scenarios, everything like that. So we start the project with a running system instead of a clean sheet of paper. And this really helps the key users to learn the system, to help designing the system, and to get acquainted with the system. And this brings the success at the end of the project. So this was the overview of the total added value that EWM has compared to just a core warehouse management system. I would now like to introduce our reference cases that we did in the year 2017 alone. And we at Ctac have 3 target markets. We have a retail focus, a wholesale focus, and a manufacturing focus. And in all of these 3 markets, we have EWM projects running or even implemented yet. I'd like to introduce our 3 cases. We have a discount retailer, a very large discount retailer, with stores all over Europe, and they are even the fastest growing retailer in Europe. We implemented them on EWM in 2016 and 2017, and this is still going on. We have a spare parts wholesaler, so it's a wholesaler that delivers spare parts. And we have a high-tech manufacturer. They are in the electronics industry. They deliver high-tech products, and they have factories in China and the Netherlands. So what I would like to discuss with you, as the topic of this webinar is the added value of EWM, what were the business drivers for these 3 cases to start an EWM project? What key functionalities do they use, and what were their successes? The retailer, the business drivers can be in black or in blue. When it's in black, it's a business reason, and when it's in blue, it's more of an IT-driven reason to go to EWM. So our retailer is, as I said, one of the fastest growing retailers in Europe, and they needed to build a network of DCs across Europe, so in multiple countries. And to be able to support that growth, we needed fast deployment. So we needed a warehouse management system that could be easily implemented in many countries and could be easy to comprehend. So the implementation time would be very short. And also the system should be compliant to general food law and dangerous goods regulations. The key functionalities we use are voice picking, because this is very common in retail, but it's standard in EWM, so it wasn't a problem to implement it. We use wave management because of the large number of order lines. We use slotting to optimize the warehouse product master. We use cross-docking because the DC sometimes is a hub to connect multiple stores. And we use a lot of KPI dashboarding, and we use Fiori there, which is the web-based tool of SAP. And the warehouse managers even use an iPad to see their KPIs in real time. The template we used was the SAP EWM Consumer Products template. This is a product that you can buy from SAP as an add-on on SAP EWM, and it's a template, as the name says, mentioned for the consumer products industry. And the successes we had was that we've built a template in a very short period of time, within a year, and we've implemented it within 11 months. So from scratch to the first warehouse live on EWM was 11 months. And in the meantime, we have 2 warehouses running on EWM in 2 different countries with 2 different logistics service providers that manage these warehouses. And both logistic service providers found it very easy to implement EWM, and their staff could easily work with the system. And the performance of these warehouses matches the performance of the other warehouses in a very, very short period of time. So yes, the retailer achieved its goal to extend their network of warehouses very easily. Our wholesaler also had IT reasons, because they had a highly customized system with a lot of bespoke transactions, and they wanted to get rid of that. They saw the new EWM system as a prerequisite for their warehouse expansion, because they would build another warehouse next to their current warehouse, and then they would have pick, pack, and pass processes. So they would pick in one part of the warehouse and then pass it to the other part of the warehouse, and this can only be supported in EWM. And next to that, they saw opportunities for efficiency, so they wanted to consolidate multiple orders of the same customer in one picking run and also in one handling unit. Also only possible in EWM. What we use there is, again, wave management. We use deconsolidation at the inbound side, which is completely standard now and was completely custom in the previous system. We use consolidation at the outbound side, and we use carrier integration. As a template there, we used a pre-configured warehouse as a jumpstart in the project, which helped us very well during the project. And our success was that we went live in December 2017, and we did it with a completely standard system setup. So no single Z transaction, no single bespoke transaction, everything was standard. And we did achieve that we combine multiple orders now into one big run, which is a very efficient process for this wholesaler. The manufacturer, they wanted to free their developers who are building on their in-house system, and they wanted to replace that system with a standard system, but that system should be best in class. And next to that, they wanted to prepare their business for an S/4HANA implementation, and they wanted to use EWM as a jumpstart for their S/4HANA implementation. And next to that, they wanted to have a single sign-on tool, so their workers wouldn't know if they would work in the ERP system or in the EWM system, and this should be web-based. So this customer works on the Fiori Launchpad. The functionalities we use there are advanced production supply, heavy MES integration, so the manufacturing execution system integration. We use the RF framework, and we use the Fiori Launchpad. Also in this project, we make use of the pre-configured warehouse as a jumpstart. And the success is here. We aren't live yet, but we had flawless quality management, production planning, and environment, health, and safety integration. And our go live is planned for this year, for 2018 in China and Asia. So what you can conclude out of the previous slides is that EWM is not a warehouse management system that could manage a typical warehouse that you see here in the center, a typical distribution center, which was mainly the objective for the old warehouse management systems. But EWM can handle every type of warehouse. So in our manufacturer, we typically had a production warehouse with a lot of production supply and a lot of staging and consumption. Our retailer has more of a conventional distribution center, but with very high volumes. And our wholesaler is more of a typical service part warehouse. And for instance, they also use kitting and value-added services. And also this type of warehouse is very easy to support with EWM. So which conclusions can we draw at these customer reference projects? The business drivers for the EWM projects are different in each case. And we see business reasons, but also IT reasons, or a combination of both. But in no single case, the driver is just to obtain good warehouse management functionality, because good warehouse management functionality, you can get this from every best of breed warehouse management system, but there should be more than that. And for sure, the reason to implement EWM has never been that the support for their current warehouse stops in 2025, because there are reasons enough to already start your EWM project way before that point in time. The implementation tooling we use brings the success of the EWM projects. So because we always start with a template, the key users are involved, they are well trained, they are enthusiastic, and they make the project a success, and EWM does the rest. The EWM system covers a very broad scope of functionalities, way too much for a webinar in half an hour. But as you can see, it spreads out from a discount retailer until a high-tech manufacturer, and there's a lot of things in between these two types of businesses. The last conclusion is that EWM is able to do it. So all of our reference projects, they had some goals at the start of the project. They wanted to achieve some value, and EWM was able to meet these requirements, and even the most challenging ones, we were able to meet it with EWM, and even in most of the cases with the standard software. At the end of this webinar, I would like, because this is a slide out of the standard SAP slide deck in which they claim some value statements about EWM. And we wanted to show you some examples we encountered during our projects in which we can check if these value statements are true or not. And obviously, of course, they are true. As a start, first the built-in optimization. What did we encounter here? We have our retail case, and our retailer has two types of picking streets. They have a promotion street and they have regular storage. And it's very hard to manage without EWM how many goods you need in your promotion street and how many goods you need in your storage area. The sales forecast for the promotion week in our example is 14,000 items, and we receive 20,000 items in a truck. What EWM does, and for this we use the functionality of slotting, the sales forecast influences the maximum number of items that can be stored in the promotion street. And it also influences the put-away strategy. The put-away strategy will be go to the promotion street first and afterwards go to the storage. Slotting adjusts the master data, and what happens then is that the first 14,000 items will be stored into the promotion street. Then it hits the maximum set by slotting, and the rest of the 6,000 items will be diverted to the regular storage. This process was, before EWM, very hard to manage and hardly to automate by our retailer, and now it's completely standard. The next value claim we want to show is end-to-end visibility. This is a standard web DIMPRO, so a web-based transaction in EWM, and it provides an overview about all the different processes in the shipping environment. So it's called the shipping execution cockpit, and on the left side you see all the trucks that should leave, and this is only a morning shift in our retail environment. And we see, for instance, the docks where they are docked on. We can see if they are, if the trucks have arrived yet, if they docked onto the door. But we can also see the picking status, the loading status, the number of handling units loaded. So we get a very fast overview of how things are going. And because there's a drill down functionality, if we have a problem, so a truck should be finished almost and it's not finished yet, we can drill down to see even if there are multiple customers in a shipment, which customer isn't picked yet, and if you drill down to that customer and that customer has multiple deliveries, even which delivery is the problem. So you have a very fast down drill to the problem area, and you can do management by exception. And on this monitor, you get a very fast overview about your total status. So this is the visibility example we had. And even in the previous system, we have built such a monitor almost in the same way, but then it was completely customized, and now it's completely standard. The last claim we want to show you, the example we have encountered, is about flexibility. EWM is a very flexible system. It's not that there's just one way to do your work. There are multiple options. And I'd like to show you an example in our manufacturing environment. Our manufacturer has a purchase order, and they purchase a certain part, and it has technical specs. So we want to receive an exact manufacturer's part number that we need for our production. The only thing that our vendor provides, or that we have, is a production order. We don't get an ASN, so no advanced shipping notification at all. What EWM can do is that it can schedule a batch job and it can create an expected goods receipt. So it's not an inbound delivery, it's just a copy of your purchase order data. So the warehouse management knows that it will receive goods in some point of time. We only don't know when, because the vendor doesn't tell us. This expected goods receipt is the basis to create an inbound delivery in EWM later on. Then the goods arrive, and the only thing we have is a QR barcode that the vendor supplied. And what we did with this QR barcode, we created a custom RF transaction, but it's not a Z transaction. It's a transaction, it's called a logical transaction within the RF framework. So even within the standard RF transaction of EWM, we have built in a new logical transaction to scan this QR barcode, and it looks like this. We scan the QR barcode, and when we do this, a lot of things happen in the background. The expected goods receipt will be converted into an inbound delivery. So we didn't have an inbound delivery, but we created on the spot by scanning the QR barcode. By doing this, we also check the manufacturer's part number, which is in the QR barcode. So we check if we received the right part. If we didn't receive the right part, the inbound delivery will not be created. And what we also do is we provide data to the goods receiver. In this case, it are codes, but he knows the meaning of these codes, so he can check the temperature conditions, the storage conditions, the container requirements, and things like that. So with one scan, the whole inbound delivery is prepared, and the only thing he has to do is to scan a packaging material, so a crate or a pallet or something like that. And when he scans this, the goods will be automatically packed onto that packaging material, and the inbound process will start. So we have a very fast two-step receipt process in which we create an inbound delivery, pack an inbound delivery, create a warehouse task, check all the conditions with only two actions. And this transaction is also a preparation for a project later on, in which the whole receipt will be done by a robot arm that you see below. And this robot arm has a built-in scanner, and he will execute this transaction as well. So it will be a very fast goods receipt process, even without any information on the forehand. So EWM is very flexible in this receipt process because in former systems you really needed information and inbound deliveries provided to deal with the whole goods receipt process. So this was the last example we wanted to show you today in this half an hour overview of the EWM added value. As we say, it's just a very brief overview about the EWM added value. There is lots and lots more, but we wanted to provide you the highlights of what we encountered last year and the highlights of the EWM added value. And yeah, there will be more to come. And I would like to hand over the presentation now again to my colleague, Eli.
Yes, thank you, Bas, for sharing your experience. So, like you said, there's still a lot of information and experience that we want to share to you. So what we are planning next is like a deep dive in SAP EWM. It could be via another webinar or multiple webinars, or even a roundtable event. Of course, next one, transportation management, where we would like to do the same. Your topics or suggestions are also welcome, of course. And on Thursday, we are at the Supply Chain Innovations event, where we have a booth. And one of our customers will speak about transportation management, but is also available at the stand, of course, to share their experiences. Buzz will be there as well. So after this webinar, we will send you an email with a link to the recording, and we will ask for any feedback on possible topics or suggestions and so on. So I would like to thank you for your attention. Our contact details are in the slide deck as well. So if there are any questions, you can ask us directly, of course. So thank you very much, and speak to you soon.